6:02 show is absolutely flying. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We're live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Absolutely great to be back today. Spent a couple of days in Mexico. Man, I love the people, the food, the weather. What an amazing place.
You got a little sun.
I got a little sun. Yeah, I got a little sun. And a lot of fun. By the way, rent a boat. It's nothing better. Whale watching.
Time, right?
Oh, so much fun. Joy Taylor is joining me, of course. First hour flew by, did it not?
It did. There's a lot going on today.
A lot going on today. Good to have you in America. So it's very interesting. Mike McCarthy was fired by the Green Bay Packers. And there's a story out. And there's a lot of interesting information. He's a really nice guy. He's an amazingly nice guy. The way the Packers fired him was incredibly cold. I won't get into that. But he said in the story that he got 500 texts the day he was fired, and only 200 the day he won the Super Bowl from people within the NFL, which shows you what kind of guy he is. I've said this before. Everybody I know in football, he's like Andy Reid. You can't find anybody to badmouth Andy Reid within the NFL. Goofy fans do. Nobody in the league does. You can't find anybody to badmouth Mike McCarthy within the league. He's like a good guy, and he's a smart guy, and the stories are fascinating about him. But there's a quote here about, and it's a legitimate question. He was on a podcast, and he's asked about dealing with Aaron Rodgers, and he speaks in code. And if you got a divorce with somebody, but you still had mutual friends, and you didn't want to badmouth that person, you would speak in code, right? You'd make it known how you felt, but you don't want to bury somebody. So talking about Aaron Rodgers, he said, quote, he's challenging, very rewarding and fun. The difficulty in coaching a Hall of Famer is keeping that connection, the efficiency and the fluency with other players on the offense. You got to remember, it's coordinating 11 men on every play. That, my friends, is code. That is code. Challenging, the difficulty, working with others. If I got a divorce and she was high maintenance, let's say, and beautiful, but I got it, and I came out and we had mutual friends, and I said, well, it was a challenging relationship and there was some difficulty connecting, and let's be honest about a family. It's all about coordinating everybody's needs. That would be code for pain in the butt. Greg Cosell basically said the exact same thing Mike McCarthy did, but he doesn't have to speak in code when he talks about Aaron Rodgers.
The reality is, when you watch Aaron Rodgers, and it takes nothing away from his performances over the years, but he's not truly a rhythm player, Colin. He's kind of an offbeat player, an off-rhythm player. He's more like a jazz beat. He's a second reaction player. And very often, there are throws that are there within the rhythm of the play and the timing of the play, and he doesn't make those throws. Now, he might move around and then make another throw, but there are times against really good defenses where that doesn't work. It's tough to be consistent that way against higher-level defenses.
And what has Aaron struggled with in his career? Against better teams and good defenses. Because as Mike McCarthy, a classy guy, said, in code, he's challenging. And the difficulty is connecting with other players. And the reality is it's coordinating 11 men on every play. For years and years, many of the American media members compared Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and I always said they have nothing in common. They have nothing in common. They're not even the same personality. I mean, Aaron's fought with his family. They've called him out publicly. Brady's all about family. Aaron Rodgers is Big Ben. Difficult. If Mike Tomlin ever got fired, this is what Mike Tomlin would say. He's challenging. And the difficulty with a Hall of Fame quarterback is connecting with other players on offense, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. It's coordinating 11 men on every play. Aaron is Big Ben. And Mike McCarthy's too classy, but that is code.
It's a backhanded compliment. Hall of Fame player, challenging.
If I was divorced and said she was challenging and the difficulty was connecting and coordinating with the family, everybody's
yeah, you just slip a beautiful and successful in there, and you got your quote.
That's funny. Just anytime you're talking about somebody you want backhand, just put a beautiful and successful in there. And then you
Challenging, Hall of Fame,
Beautiful, successful. That's funny.
Other people.
Very funny. Okay, so Russell Wilson is going to sign a mega contract with the Seahawks and should deserve it. Here is what has always been kind of we're all very predictable. Most people don't like change. And if you're going to do something differently in America, you're going to get blowback. When Howard Stern first came on the radio 35 years ago, Howard Stern had to deal with a constant onslaught of bosses and negativity in press because Howard was doing sexual radio and people were not comfortable with it. And now, isn't it interesting? Everybody's trying to find the next Howard. And morning shows talk about sex. That's all they talk about. Isn't it funny? It's the way it works in the world. We don't like change. We like conventional wisdom and conventional thinking. And if somebody comes in and does anything different, we're just totally not comfortable. But then we end up copying that years later. Russell Wilson came into the NFL and was different. He was 5'11", and he ran around a lot. And even his college coach at North Carolina State didn't know how the hell to use him. And now everybody in the league, isn't it interesting, is trying to find the next Russell Wilson. He's going to get Kyler Murray drafted like he got Johnny Manziel drafted, like he got Baker Mayfield drafted. If you don't do it like everybody else does it, you deal with blowback. He's even dealt with blowback on his own team in Seattle because he's different. He deserves every penny, of course. I believe Russell Wilson, we've seen him before. His name was Steve Young. Steve Young, like Russell Wilson, had a star head coach, so we never gave him a lot of credit. Steve Young had star teammates and played the position differently. He was a lefty, and he ran a lot, like Russell Wilson, who is 5'10". By the way, both have a fascinating history. Steve Young is related to Brigham Young, and Russell Wilson's dad went to Dartmouth. Not many quarterbacks' dads went to the Ivy League. When you're different, people don't like it, and they're insecure, and they don't have confidence, and they don't want to get fired. And so Howard Stern's bosses yelled at him, and you don't know what you're doing. And oh, hell, the ratings came in, and they were double what everybody else's was. And suddenly everybody's a Howard fan, and now everybody wants to copy him. And that's Russell Wilson, and that is Steve Young. The two most underrated players in the history of the NFL. Most great quarterbacks, Troy Aikman, John Elway, we know are great. Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, we know are great. Tom Brady, Drew Brees. Steve Young, blowback. Russell Wilson, blowback. But you look at the numbers, they are all-time unique quarterback talents. Russell Wilson did something in 2017, which is absolutely impossible for everybody else in the world not named Steve Young or Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson led the NFL in touchdown passes in 2017 with the worst offensive line grade-wise in the league. Tom Brady couldn't do it. Breeze couldn't do it. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Cam couldn't do it. Ben couldn't do it. By the way, Deshaun Watson had that last year and was running for his life. Russell Wilson's incredible and deserves every penny. And by the way, has been suppressed by teammates, the Legion of Boom. Pete Carroll's a defensive head coach and a star. This guy, you just don't get it. It is remarkable how I speak well of Russell Wilson and get blowback from every place in the country not named Seattle. Folks, he's Steve Young. He's Steve Young. But because Joe Montana and Bill Walsh and Jerry Rice and other stars, and he was a lefty, and he was different, and he started in a different league, nobody could just wrap their arms around how great Steve Young was. Incredible player. So Russell's going to get his money. Seattle will be crazy. In fact, it was funny. This morning I went online, the internet, www.bandwidth.com, and I went online, and people were asking this question. People I like were asking this question. Would you give up 2 first-round picks for Russell Wilson? The heck? Didn't somebody give up 9 for RG3? What? Would I give up 2 first-round picks for Russell Wilson? I'd give up 5 for Russell Wilson? Would you ask that of Tom Brady 6 years ago? Would you ask that of Aaron Rodgers 5 years ago?
It's just also a gross overvaluing of draft picks.
What?
He's your franchise quarterback.
He is basically, you'll make an argument that Russell will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, Khalil Mack. People were outraged when you got 2 first-rounders for Khalil Mack. And you're going to argue you wouldn't give up 2 first-rounders for Russell Wilson? I've always said this before. The minute you get a Russell Wilson, for 13 years, you don't need to hit on any first-round quarterbacks or on any first-round picks. What you have to hit on is your second, your third, and your fourth, because you're going to have to pay the quarterback a fortune. So you could actually give up every first-round pick. Just make sure you got a bunch of seconds, third, and fourths, and fifths, and you hit on some of those, because you can't pay a bunch of really good young players.
What exactly are you hoping to get for those 2 first-round picks?
Well, you wouldn't need a quarterback. I mean, it's incredible to me. I know people.
I mean, how much better of a player do you think you're going to get?
You don't get him. Last year, Mahomes, look at all his gifts. Drew Brees, top 2 passer rating. Third was Russell Wilson. Can you name an offensive lineman there? Can you name one of his running backs? Can you name his tight end last year? I mean, and by the way, the only reason you know who Doug Baldwin is because of Russell Wilson. He was undrafted. And there you go. And I like Doug Baldwin, but you wouldn't know who he was if he played with Blake Bortles. You wouldn't know who Doug Baldwin was. All right, coming up, Marcus Johnson, 5-time NBA All-Star, does Milwaukee Bucks TV work now. Former UCLA star, does Milwaukee Bucks TV analyst work, and I'm being told Milwaukee is going to win the NBA championship just standing on their head, and I don't know what I'm talking about, so we're going to ask him about that. Also, I am in a position as a sportscaster of some renown. I'm rooting for something to happen in sports, and I'm